Good morning. Today is March 9th. Oh, yeah, Sunday. And you're watching the Viewscreen. I am your host, Amy Nelson.
And I'm your host, Kelvin Wood. The Viewscreen is your weekly Star Trek magazine show with news, events, special features, and lots of love for our Starfleet family all around the globe.
And we are so excited to see you in the chat. We, in the United States here, have transitioned to daylight saving time. So there was a little confusion. I don't know why we didn't talk about this, Kelvin.
Hence the outfit. I found out about this time change about 3 minutes ago. So I've done very well to get the computer logged on and everything set up. I just look a little ropey today. I'm usually caked in character makeup before we go on.
Oh my goodness. You know, there's always something, isn't there? So how are you doing?
I am, apart from being highly stressed at the moment, I'm really well. Do you know, I was so cocky. I was saying I'm so relaxed about the Viewscreen this week. We've got guests on who've been on before. All the script and the prep is done. I'll just relax. We've got beautiful weather here in Manchester. We've got temperatures of 18 degrees, which is crazy for a March this early. So yeah, you're lucky actually. I'm home.
Yeah, that's the truth. Out getting a cocktail.
Yeah.
You know, it's again, I love living in Las Vegas because I do get a lot of visitors. And we had another friend from the Trek cruise come and visit. So I got to go to dinner and have drinks and wonderful time with some local Star Trek friends. So that's always wonderful. And right. I got to hear, firsthand experience of the cruise. And they told me about Robin Curtis's panel. So I'm just going to leave that there. If you haven't heard about it, if anyone talks about it, please do.
Okay, I might have to tap up a few of my cruise contacts for some gossip. I've been hearing all sorts myself via messages and things. So I've not heard the Robin Curtis one. Interesting.
Yes.
Is it political?
No. I'm trying to remember. Stevie, do you remember? Was it on there? It's about her sexual escapades throughout her life. And I will leave it there.
Interesting.
Her freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've teased that up quite well. I'm going to head straight to YouTube after this and look for that one.
Yes. So, well, yes, we do have lovely listeners in the chat. Hello, Joel. Hello, Kit. Nice to see you.
Hi, guys. If anyone from the UK is watching, please head to Facebook and put a message out and say, we're live now. Because people won't know here. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's joining us in the chat. Please put some messages on as we're talking, as the guests are contributing. We'll try and get around and view as many as we can, just to interact with you a little bit more.
Yeah. And go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button to get that algorithm going so others can find our show.
We've had some fantastic numbers on YouTube for those of you who are catching up afterwards, if you're not able to make it live. And also don't forget, you can get the show as a regular podcast if you are an audio listener from wherever you get your podcasts. I'm probably a little better this week as an audio download listen rather than live, because I'm in the
Oh, Kelvin. Always scrappy.
Later on.
Well, you have your cap with your delta, so you're representing. It's all good.
Great. Good stuff.
Well, what do we have going on this week, Kelvin?
We have Exploration Week this week, and we are exploring the self and the skies. So coming up this week, Kristin's here with all of the news and events with a very special guest.
Yes.
Hey, Stevie. Hey, Kristin.
And returning with us, we have Josh Judkins, who's going to be exploring the stars and catching up with what he's been doing.
Hey, Josh. And finally, also returning, we have Lex Rosa, who's going to be exploring the self concept with a little bit more about the podcast that's upcoming. Hey, Lex.
What a packed show. And again, these are returning guests. So yeah, this show's going to just be perfect, I'm sure. No jinxing it. Come on,
No
Nelson.
Right, well, without further ado, let's head over to the newsroom.
Kristin.
Hello.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we have a surprise guest. Kristin, who's with you?
Stevie, all the way from Australia via the Star Trek cruise. So I'm so honored that we were part of his itinerary while he was over in North America. And we picked him up last night at the airport. And we have a whole little mini vacay planned for a few days before he heads back home.
I'm so excited to be my last stop, my grand North American whirlwind tour.
So, Stevie, tell us highlights from this year's cruise, and how many cruises have you been on?
So this is my third cruise. What the big highlight for this year was there were so many more new gays that I've never seen. So I was really excited to meet a whole bunch of them. Washington, D.C. really represented this year. So we had so many, made so many friends from anywhere from Guam to Washington. It was so good.
Isn't that surprising that you're like, oh my gosh, we have so many amazing friends. And then you go on the cruise and there's still that many more amazing people we haven't met.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, absolutely loved it. It was amazing. Highlight for me was Robin Curtis. Other than her escapades, she was just such a sweet soul. Never met someone so sweet. So loved her.
Yeah, she's so generous with the time. She's always very chatty with everyone at conventions, no matter where she goes. So a lot of people say the same, Stevie, when they've met her.
Yeah. No, I loved her. Gave me lots of beautiful hugs every time I saw her. It was like, keep hugging me.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I love the color scheme that they went for this year as well, with all the merch. That maroon is really, really nice. Ooh. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Better than that gray.
Oh, that gray was terrible.
Gifts this year. They weren't some useless, gigantic tote bag that drags along the ground and a gigantic hat. So yeah, some great little gifts. I loved them.
I was laying in bed on social media, doom scrolling as I did for the entire week while the cruise was on, whilst that massive bag from last year is hung up on the wardrobe door. Seeing the little bum bag fanny pack that they got this year going, is so much better than what
I'm so mad. I'm a fanny pack person. Like, I always have my fanny pack on me, and now I've missed it.
Yeah.
No, that bag was so good. While I was bouging it around the Mayan ruins in Mexico, so it was great.
Oh,
it's a well-traveled fanny pack.
Kristin, I love that you're like a roving reporter this week with the microphone.
Yes. Just waiting for a big windstorm behind me and like a cow to fly by or something like that.
Tell us what you've got planned for your weekend, because it's your birthday tomorrow, isn't it?
It is my birthday tomorrow. So today we are doing brunch after this. And then we're heading over to across our infamous bridge, and we're hitting up a few wineries, a cidery, and a brewery.
Ooh.
And then lots of food.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too.
I really am.
But this is the perfect way to start the day.
Yeah.
And then ring in the next year for me tomorrow. So it'll be, yeah.
I'll tell you this, I'm loving the Canadian hospitality. These two are absolutely wonderful. But was it Toronto? I had random people I've never met before inviting me to parties, and it was just awesome. So when they say about Canadian hospitality, it's real. It is awesome. Come up north of the border. They are wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Well, what have you got for us this week, Kristin?
This was actually quite a fun week in the world of news. So jumping right into it, of course, with the episode birthday happy 34th birthday to Galaxy's Child. This is one of the very first episodes I ever remember seeing. And I think you were mentioning that earlier, that this is where I was starting to be like, what is this show? What is going on? And it always made me sad because the mom dies, the mom alien, and didn't like that. And then the whole Geordie thing, this was a very problematic episode in hindsight. And I don't know how anyone else, it's good, but it can be problematic because Geordie, there is no way that you can really excuse your way out of this. I'm sorry. This is kind of icky. And then it also was a bit of a commentary on how humans treat wildlife. Like there was, there was that whole thing as well. But, it gets you thinking 34 years later, again, we're still talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Geordie really never managed to shake the reputation that this episode gave him, and it's kind of tarnished the character. Do you think it was deserved on the strength of, 2 episodes, I guess?
Honestly, it was the gaslighting at the end that he did, where he was very much, I was just trying to be your friend. She didn't want to be your friend, and she doesn't have to be your friend just because of whatever. She's a married woman on your ship to do a job, and that's what she set those boundaries very clearly with him, and he still decided, I'm going to be creepy with you on the holodeck. Man, a lot of stuff happens on that holodeck. That's kind of weird, Riker. So I just found that I didn't like the way he handled the situation when he got called out. And then I also don't like the fact that in canon, essentially, they do get married at one point. I kind of wish that he just learned from this and they were able to move on as friends. But the fact that they did have them get married at the end,
Do you think, because they never actually said who Geordie's, or who the mother of Geordie's children is in Picard season 3, but in All Good Things it was Leah Bram. So do you think it was Leah in Picard or someone else?
I don't know. That is a very good question. Listeners, what do you think?
I thought it was Leah for some reason.
I thought it was, but so they didn't say your name, hey?
Never said, they just said.
Well, maybe it didn't last between Geordie and Leah.
Yeah.
Maybe. So let's, but anyway, happy 34th birthday, Galaxy's Child. It was an episode. So that is what I will say about that. Next, we've got Meme of the Week. Me in the produce section.
I just grunted.
I'm a very serious produce buyer, and I'm always the weirdo examining everything, making sure that it looks good. And I'm very self-conscious if do I actually look like this? So I need to check myself next time I go food shopping.
It's definitely me in the avocados. Yeah.
And then you have to catch
you need
them.
to find the right,
You do. And then you want a package that has, some that are not really ripe and then some that are ready to eat. And then you need to catch that one in the 30 seconds that it's ripe before it starts going bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the most temperamental avocado fruit. I don't know. Are they fruit? They might be fruit.
I think they are fruit.
They are fruit. Yeah. Most temperamental fruit out there. But this is me in the produce section. Next, we have a release for Section 31 on Blu-ray coming out end of April. I'm sure people will be running in droves to buy this. Absolutely. It was such a good movie.
I only saw 20 minutes of it and I had to shut it off.
Oh, wow. I saw it 3 times, Stevie.
3 times. Does it get better?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would recommend, if you can, see it on the big screen because that really does put it more into perspective.
Okay.
Should give it another try.
I don't know if I'll find a big screen in this town that will show it. So, but that's, that's good that it grew on you then.
Yeah.
Kristin, I never thought there'd be a more scathing view of Section 31 in your little podcast studio room than you. That's quite a turn up.
Absolutely. Look, the costumes, it was amazing, but the characterizations, no.
And I don't know. For me, I think we'd waited so long for a new Star Trek movie that we had put so much on it. So potentially we didn't properly temper our expectations. I'm excited. I'm wondering if the DVD has any extra features. It didn't say, but I would be looking for things like maybe some behind the scenes, some extended scenes, some bloopers, anything maybe to zhuzh up what this movie was or wasn't.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of people and their completionists will, get this and to have that physical media and to make sure that their set is complete. So,
as someone who is at one at a time canceling all of my online streaming services, I'm really, really happy I've kept all of my physical media.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're the smart cookie.
Yeah. Well, once in a while I'm due. So up next, we have other amazing news about Strange New Worlds. That season 4 production is already underway. Let's go. There is still no release date for season 3, and I'm kind of getting a little like, what are we doing?
This is weird, isn't it? You don't think it's really odd to make a big deal of season 4 starting filming when we don't actually know when season 3 is on?
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that we are maybe moving out of any sort of drought or big gap between stuff airing, but this is, I'm trying to stay excited for season 3, but at this point, I just at least need a day to look forward to. But I guess the cast was really excited. They were posting photos of them on the scene for season 4. There's Anson holding the clacker board. So either way, I'm really stoked that there's constant renewal and interest in this show, and maybe they'll break the 5-year curse of the new Treks and go to the classic 7. That would be nice to see. But
I don't think Pike will be going to 7. If continuity is correct, he'll be dead in season 4. Well, he'll be in the chair in season 4.
Let's see what they do with that.
Yeah.
Let's see what they do with that.
They might find a way to get around it.
Trek finds a way.
Yeah.
They do
the timeline.
Yeah, always the timelines. So anyway, despite the fact that we don't know when season 3 is, I'm so excited that season 4 is already doing its thing. And speaking of season 4, or season 3, sorry, the cast had all of their season 3 promo photos done. Yeah. And on the next slide, you'll see that these photos, 1, are stunning. But 2, are we getting a bit of a spoiler? So if we could go to the next slide. So
I thought this.
Right?
Yeah.
So anybody who's listening, so Captain Batel at the end of season 2 in Hegemony had a very unfortunate situation arise, shall we say. But now we're getting a season 3 promo for her. So is she not dead? Did they accidentally reveal a huge spoilie?
I think they have, because I know talking about the female characters and the way their hair looks, but we do. Her hair is completely different in the cast shot, and I don't think they would have done that for one episode or if it was a misdirect. Yeah. So I think they've given it away.
See, sometimes you do too much stuff online. You give too much stuff away, so gotta be careful. But because, we've seen this with Trek throughout the decades. When Search for Spock was coming out back in the 80s, it was under a completely different name. With Into Darkness, again, completely different name, so we didn't know that was Khan. So seeing this now is like, well, maybe we should have just not shared so much. But I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll dupe us all and she's in it for 5 minutes. And then she dies. Or births Gorn Bebes via alien style. Just, are they going to be chest bursters? I don't know. We'll see. But either way, this was a very interesting slip, I wonder. Yeah. Into the news about a little bit of a cool, Trek IRL. I love how so many people who've invented everything from cell phones to virtual reality machines, all the inventors always go back and credit Trek as being their inspiration. And now we have a $250 million Trek-inspired drone shield. So as drones fly down in areas because they can be weaponized and really dangerous and stuff, this sets off some sort of an electric pulse that doesn't allow them to pass by that barrier. So in fact does create a shield.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. And the guy who invented it has said it's like Star Trek. And so that's what he has credited the inspiration for. And it's just meant to help against airborne warfare.
Wow.
He knock out everything though. They won't have the phones working or anything.
Well, I'm wondering if because the electromagnetic shield is being directed in one direction, if you're standing behind it, maybe you're safe.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite the machine. Honestly, when I first saw it, it kind of looked like an AT-AT. So I was thinking, Star Trek technology, Star Wars aesthetic. Kind of, but either way,
it looks like a hole puncher.
Oh, oh my gosh, that's all I can see now.
Hole puncher.
Click, click. But I love because I've also known that people want a cloaking shield, and people are doing stuff with that and mirrors and all of. So that's really cool. But this is so intriguing, and I'm excited to see what happens. They've just got a huge influx of money. It is being developed out of the US. Hopefully, this technology is not one day used against what were formerly friends of the US. So I'm just hoping that this technology will be used wisely. But that is a TBD. So either way, really cool to see that even 60 years later, Trek is still inspiring people to invent new things and hopefully to make the world a better place. And then up next, we have, I am excited for this, a whole new line of action figures, but of random characters who have never had action figures before. So we have Valkyris, who I've always been a fan of her. She's from Search for Spock. If anyone's wondering, she gets killed by Christopher Lloyd so she was like his lady or whatever, and fed him all the Genesis information. And I'm excited that she's getting an action figure, and I will be buying her. Wei Yun, Mr. Coombs himself. Let's go. We've got Tuvix, which is always a good talking point. Somebody noted on Reddit that they're like, oh, I just placed an order for a Tuvix, but when my summary arrived in my inbox, it said Neelix and Tuvok.
Ooh,
Drama. So I thought that was clever. We have Captain Garrett. We have Mirror Archer. I didn't know James Vanderbeek was in Star Trek. So if anyone's wondering, go look at the action figure. It looks exactly like James Vanderbeek. Then we have Captain Jellicoe. Again, very polarizing character. Peter Preston, bless his little soul.
Aww.
I know, Peter. And then Captain Sulu, but the undiscovered country Captain Sulu with his teacup. I know. I think it's really cool that they're bringing back some real classic characters who've never been in collectible form before. So, this is very much, as Christian will say, just take my money.
So I'm surprised that Wei Yun and Mirror Archer haven't been done before, to be honest with you.
Me too. And I'm surprised Sulu and his little teacup was never out, because that line of Chinaware is actually quite sought after.
It's really popular.
Yeah.
Joel in the chat says that Jellicoe comes with a Livingston too. That's funny.
Yeah, the fish tank.
Yes. Because he told him, get that fish out of here.
Yeah. Have you seen all of the accessories that come with them? Because they've all got interchangeable heads and hands. Captain Garrett comes with the pizza cutter stuck in her head.
Oh my gosh.
No.
That's dark.
It's very dark.
And then someone else online was saying, shouldn't the Wayun come in a set of 9?
Oh, right. That's funny.
I like that one. Yeah, I thought that was clever. So, this for me is just really nostalgic the way they've done these, and I think it's going to be very cool to see when they come out, and maybe add some to my collectible wall in the back here. So,
yeah.
I
mean, I've said it before about this nacelle line when they were first announced. I will get them. They all look amazing, but I'm just so disappointed they're not 4.5 inches so that they fit in with the Playmates ones.
Oh.
Yeah, they're going to be, so they're not going to.
7.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
Did you say they're going to be 7 inches?
6 or 7, around that.
Well, that's actually quite big.
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
Okay.
the first one on my list is Valkyris, and I don't know how many people are going to follow suit on that, but I also think like she would be really fun to do. Yes, Joel, agreed. I'm looking into her already and being like, how can I do Valkyris costume for my next Trek event? Whenever that might be.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, I'm digging her hard. Now, next, so this is the week of exploration. And so we are going to do a quick little exploration and walkthrough of the new Star Trek Wild Galaxy theme park that has opened in Turkey. So this opened just this week, and it's going to be motion simulated. It is based on Star Trek Prodigy. And so these are all photos from somebody who got to go through and do an initial first look. So for those of you listening online, I'm really sorry you're going to miss out on some of these photos. Go check this out on YouTube instead so you can see. Also, I am so excited that there is a Star Trek theme park attraction option. No offense to people listening, but outside of the US. Because as a Canadian, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to the US in the next year or so. So I have options now. Mm-hmm. We have alternatives. So this is the entryway to go in. And then next we move into the lobby where they're going to have all these little animatronic babies. Aren't they cute? And this everything is designed again to look like Prodigy and everything. So lots of attention to detail. The little baby bottle for the little dude down there. I don't know. It just looks real. It's very, very futuristic, which makes sense. But I think it's aesthetically very pleasing. You move past the lobby into the next slide, which is the exhibit room. So this is where you really become immersed in the Trek universe. They're going to have little creatures to go look at. They're going to have galaxy displays and everything. Just so this is where the world of Trek is going to be shown and be interactive for people who are walking through the space. So I really love that.
It seems more like a museum at this point with interactive exhibits.
It is. So it is, but this is all the lead-in. So the next step from here is the biodome rooms. So they will be. This is their little vet hospital apparently. So they have all these little creatures that are getting their medical care done and all of that. And again, it's very. Yeah, exactly, Kelvin, like you were saying, museum-like. But this is all leading up to, this is all part of the whole experience. So it's this walk-through portion, getting to feel like you're actually on the ship and seeing what it would be like to be on board. And then finally we get to the airlock. And this is where you meet Dal and all of his friends in the airlock. And you hang out, and then that leads you into the theater room, which you see on the right here with those amazing like bay doors opening to the screen. And this is where you will actually see take part in the wild ride. So I believe it's supposed to be very much like the Borg 4D experience that was at the Hilton in Vegas for years, where it's supposed to be very, very immersive, like you're in in space in a ship. So the first look, I have to say, wow, this theme park in Turkey really took this idea and ran with it. And I think from a looks perspective, they've really done a good job. And I'm interested to start hearing feedback about what the actual show and ride is.
Yeah. Wow. That they followed a similar model to, the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas, because it also had that museum piece where you were walking up and down. They had a beautiful timeline up to 2008, and they had costumes and set pieces, behind glass. And so you would go through and then finally make your way to the, 4D ride or whatever. So it looks very similar. And that immersiveness, I wonder, because Star Trek Experience did have actors in costume going around, like the Borg freaked me out. The Klingons were incredible. So I'm curious if anyone out there goes or knows, that would be interesting to see if they do that as well.
Justin and I took our honeymoon in Vegas because I had to see the Hilton before it shut down. Yeah. And it shut down the month after we got married. So I love that this is back. I love the way they're doing it because, Amy, one of my favorite parts was that walk through, and I have a selfie with Spock's burial torpedo and the Klingon. I remember we're all just standing in line waiting for the Klingon ride. And all of a sudden, just this person behind us just lets out the biggest burp ever. And you turn around and it's some dude dressed as a Klingon. And it was amazing. So it's so good. So I really hope that they follow that format, because it was really cool to feel like you're part of the crew. So wow, Trek is definitely a worldwide phenomenon, and it has now popped up overseas for us anyway, in this amazing new immersive ride.
Yeah, that is so exciting. I had heard rumor like a couple years ago that there was going to be some kind of Star Trek experience, and now here it is. Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Thank you for finding this.
Yeah, it was really it's top of the news right now when you start looking into different stuff. And I just loved that this person took the time to post some of the real shots. Most of the ones without people are what it actually looks like. And then the pictures with humans is just sort of the AI
promo.
Of what it's going to look like.
Good job, Kristin. Do you remember when we first mentioned this months ago? It might have been and I think we were all kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Very much. And here it is. I do find it very interesting that they picked up and ran with the Prodigy theme.
Yeah.
That, there are Lower Decks has been around longer, and other ones have made more of an impact.
Maybe the rights are cheaper.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? Let's go, because it's also a part of Trek that has not been explored as much as it should have. And I know that people who liked Prodigy were really upset that we're not going to get more exploration of that storyline. So here it is in a different capacity, but I just think it's so cool. It's another thing for us to do. So, if some of us maybe, I don't know, we could do the cruise again, or we could fly. Kelvin, this would be easier for you to go to.
It would. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Turkey is the #1 cosmetic surgery tourism destination if you want new teeth or hair transplants. So you can come back an entirely new person and get a Star Trek ride while you're there.
I could just see us all walking through here in our Trek uniforms, and our heads are all bandaged up. Our eyes are literally like, that's amazing, guys.
We would be doll.
Yeah, our lips are just like
getting our genetic enhancements.
Yeah, or Ruafo.
Oh no, that's nightmare fuel when the little vein in his head explodes. Anyway, that's the news for this week. So I was excited there was actually news.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
it's been a
let's
bit
bring-
of a slow start.
Yeah, let's bring in Lex and Josh and see what they have to comment about what you had to say. Josh, anything stick out to you?
Yeah, I have to admit, if you can see, I might need turkey services sooner than later. And yeah, it's a place I've wanted to visit for the culture, but now I want to go for the Star Trek.
My friend went a couple years ago, and she said the one thing is the food is next level. Like, you will never experience anything like it. And for people who love it, there are cats everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Let's go.
What about you, Lex? Anything stand out for you?
Oh man, it's poetic, Kristin. The last time I was on this episode, you were giving the preview of this, and I remember we were like, "Really? Is this just vaporware? Is this just like Lex's podcast that he's never going to launch?" But it's like they finally did the thing, and it's real, and I'm really impressed. So good find, and like yet another reason to go to Turkey. And I love that they're doing the Prodigy. You're probably right, Kelvin, that it's probably a cost thing, but I think it's also, like you were saying, Kristin, it's a good opportunity to bring new people into the franchise. It's a much more it's probably a little bit more digestible for people who aren't as familiar with the franchise, right? A little bit more friendly, and then for the kids and stuff. So yeah. I think it's actually brilliant to use Prodigy for this.
And what if it's really popular as well, and it makes a load of money, generates loads of interest, and actually ends up getting Prodigy back on the air because of the interest?
That or the other thing I'm thinking of is, the way this park is described is it sounds very much like a Disneyland. So they have different themes in different areas, and maybe this will just be the installation number 1 that's Star Trek based, and maybe they'll start to do the other series as well, and just start to see some good old stuff come in, and maybe a Strange New Worlds one, and yeah. Who knows? But Lex, like you said, I really hope that it has some traction and really is successful.
I also wanted to comment on the figurines. I was curious about the Weiyun one. If you accidentally damage or destroy yours, do they send you back an identical copy?
That's lifetime warranty.
Yeah. Just on that one. The rest you'd have to. Nope. You get the one figurine. We'll replace this one, or like replace it up to 9 times or something.
Yeah, there you go. 9. Yep.
They really should do like a Jeffrey Combs collection, like all the characters.
Funny.
That's a good idea.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah, that would be, again, a take my money.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well, great job this week, Kristin. That was some marvelous news. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone, and Kristin, and indeed Stevie as well. We'll see you a little later in the show.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
So interesting.
I'm actually quite fascinated by all of that, because I've not seen a lot of that on the internet this week. So I'm feeling informed by all of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what have we got coming up first, Amy?
Well, let's bring on Lex, who is host of Transformational Journeys, back with us again. Hello, Lex.
Hello,
how have you been? It's been a while.
Well, yeah, it's been a transformational journey since the last time I was here. It's the dangerous art of self-discovery. It can be treacherous, but it is very rewarding. But I did get my pilot. I'm calling it a pilot because it's a soft launch. I think I don't want to fully launch until I have at least 2 episodes out there to go. But this is a soft launch, and so people here know that I now have a new episode, and I'm excited to talk about it today. But yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here.
No worries. Yeah. So is it dropped now? Is it out, your pilot episode?
Yeah. This being coming on here was a great motivation for me to just say, I'm not going to let perfect be the enemy of good enough. It's not what I want it to be, but I also have to remember that you know, you got to start somewhere. So yes, it dropped yesterday. So if you go to at Transformational Journeys, it's there in my, you can see it right there under my name on YouTube. You can check out the first episode.
Brilliant.
That is exciting. You know, that idea of perfectionism, I struggle with as well. And yeah, it's like, okay, well, if I don't get it out, then that's worse, you know, because I want it out there. I want to put it out there. I want the content. And we can just hope that it will be received with the intent that it was sent out, you know. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that social media and out there in the voice of media can be harsh sometimes, and you have to be prepared for that criticism.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talk about on my Instagram as well, at @the_Lex Rosa on Instagram. I have some reels where I talk about that. You know, it's hard to practice what you preach, but the reason that I do that, the reason I share what I do, is to not just help others, but to remind myself that you know, when you become so fixated on external validation, it can hold you back, right? But yeah, I wanted to talk about how Star Trek inspired this podcast and why it's so relevant to Trekkies. You know, was last year on the cruise, conversations with folks like, you know, you, Amy, and I think Kristin and some other folks, Rhea. I had these awesome conversations where I started to learn about people and the journey that they had been on and how they had become who they are today and how they'd become these self-realized, you know, beings that stand out to me, that are authentic, that I can connect with in ways that I don't find that I'm able to connect with others. And so that inspired me to want to do this. And it wasn't just the fact that I was inspired on a Star Trek cruise. It's also the fact that, you know, Star Trek is about exploring and finding new life in new civilizations. And I don't think we ever stop and ask ourselves, like, why is the Federation doing this? Why are they going out and seeking out new life in new civilizations, right? We just take it as a given that they're doing it, right? And when you think about it, well, the reason that, you know, the Federation is doing this is because, and even if you watch the shows, the reason that Gene Roddenberry did it this way is you're made to think that you're watching a show to learn about these new aliens and civilizations, but you're actually learning about humanity. Like, you're learning about humanity because it's only by the connection between humanity and other species that you can really understand humanity. And so for me, I've gone on this journey of self-discovery because I wanted to improve my ability to connect with others. And I don't naturally do that. I mean, it probably is surprising to you, but like, I just don't. Like, I grew up with a computer in the 80s. I was shut in my room, and like, I'm a total, you know, techie geek. But like, I was starving for that connection. And so I started to research this, and I realized, well, the way for me to connect with others is to better connect with myself. And then the way for me to better connect with myself is to connect with others. So it's this virtuous cycle. And so it just all seemed to make sense that the way to help people get better at connecting with themselves and others is through a podcast that talks about that.
So that connection that we had on the cruise was really quite strong and palpable. Like, it's, you know, continued, and our relationship, you know, for years, you know, that foundation. And when you talk about like Trekkies as a whole, I've found in talking to others, I can get to that type of transformational journey discussion easier with Trek people than my other groups of friends. Have you found that?
Yes, absolutely. It's true. I think when you have something in common with other people, you can get there quicker. I think the that's sort of like the first step on that journey, right? I think the next step is being able to do that with somebody that you just don't have anything. It's like in Star Trek, right? When the first species they met were the Vulcans, and a little bit different. They're very logical, but they're still very humanoid, right? But then like now we're talking about the Pandronians. I wanted to call them the space ravioli, but that's probably like a slur. I'm sorry. But that's how I remember them. They look like, but like the Pandronians, like totally different than us, right? Like, so how do you connect with that? But when you can connect with, a person that feels like so alien and different from you, and so, I think that's something else I've been trying to challenge myself is like, I've spent so much time in the Star Trek world. I go to the conventions, I go to the cruises, and like you said, it's connection is so easy. And it's like, okay, can I push myself? Can I go to the Eagle and then run into Stevie? Again, but like I think that's I think another example of my own community. So I think just like pushing yourself beyond that. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One of the things on this podcast that's really exciting is that the episodes are structured. The interviews that I do with people are structured. So there's the same 5 pillars that we discuss with different people. So you get to see how these manifest in people from different walks of life, right? So those pillars are authenticity, right? What are the pivotal realizations that people have in their path and their journey and the self-inquiry, connection, how self-connection influences their relationships and empathy. And then the next one is self-compassion and acceptance, right? The importance of self-kindness and resilience and compassion, which is key to personal transformation and connection with others. And then the next one, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, Amy, is rejection, right? Embracing rejection as a tool for discovering genuine connection and being able to shed those societal norms. Because if we're not willing to, face the potential of rejection, then we can't gain anything, right? We've got to have that. Just like the Federation, right? If they don't face the risk of they're going to meet a new civilization, what if it turns into an all-out war? Like that's possible, that it could be the war that ends everything, but you have to be willing to face that, right? And then the final where we close is we just talk about how personal growth, transformation is a continuum. It's an ongoing thing. You never arrive, right? I think we live in a society that is very goal oriented. Like, if I do this, I'll get that. If I do this, I'll get that. And we're so focused on that. But the key to self growth and self transformation, it's like, I don't know if folks out there do any exercising, weightlifting. That's what I like to weightlift. I'll use that analogy. But like you never arrive somewhere. It's just an ongoing thing. It's hygiene, right? And so what I'm hoping is that people watch this and they see this as an ongoing thing. It's like hygiene, right? It's like I brush my teeth, I do my exercises. And then I also stop and I think about my connections and my authenticity, my kindness, my self-compassion. Where am I fearing rejection? How do I get better about this, right? So it's part of all of that.
One thing that I've been trying to work on personally and like with my students is that rejection and, okay, are you prepared if the answer is no? And how are you going to self-regulate? Can you, as you said, be resilient? Say, oh man, I got this answer of no, or something bad happened. How are you going to recoup? How are you going to get over that and get back to that place where you are happy? Because you get a lot of rejection in life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So like, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think if there's one thing that I wish that was taught to me when I was growing up, I wish I had you as a teacher, right? It's like, how do you learn emotional self-regulation, right? How do you recover when something goes wrong, and being able to trust yourself that you can? And again, using the Star Trek, the Federation metaphor, right? Why do they have a massive fleet with, phasers and shields and weapons and all of that when they're trying to go out and meet new life and civilizations and they're about peace? Well, because what if you discover the Borg as you're seeking out new life and it doesn't work out and you're rejected in a bad way? Well, are you prepared to deal with those consequences, right? So I think what you're doing is you're equipping them with the tools to protect themselves and to, you know, recover when those things happen. Because if you don't feel like you're able to, if you're going to go bungee jumping off a bridge, but you don't have a bungee cord, you're not going to jump. Like, you shouldn't jump, like, right? So I think that's a good point. Like, I don't want to tell people, it could be dangerous to tell people, oh, don't worry about rejection, just go out there and face it, without giving them the tools to,
Right.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good on you. That's a good point.
Yeah.
How have you gone about finding your guests for the show?
Oh yeah, I would love to talk about the
subject areas that you're covering.
Yeah, so I want to, first I want to talk about the first one, because this is kind of poetic. The first guest is Odysseus Michael, also known as Odie. And I've known him for about 20 years. And, about 7 or 8 years ago, we re-entered life together. We came back into each other's lives, and it kicked off this, we were both at this place where it kicked off this big transformational journey for both of us. And so to like have him as the first guest on here is amazing. So this is a lifelong friend of mine that has had a huge impact on my own, journey. And in the conversation, we talk about these things like what does it mean to live authentically? How do you overcome self-sabotage and destructive thought patterns, right? How connecting with others helps us connect with ourselves. And one of my favorite ones that's similar to what you're talking about, Amy, is the role of mentorship in healing your own, past wounds and growing. And then another one, why training the body tames the mind. Like before Odie came back into my life, I didn't have a workout regimen. I didn't take care of my body. And that was a big part of why I was struggling, I think. And then we close out, on a really deep topic on this episode, which is that we don't realize what has value in life until we're in that place where we think about, what if I'm gone? What if I'm on my deathbed? What do I value in that moment? And, never has somebody on the deathbed said like, oh, I wish I had, a big fancy car. I wish I had more money. It's almost always about people and connection, right? And so I think that's an important reminder to stop and think about that. The people I have on the show that I've already interviewed that I need to produce. And by the way, if there are anybody out there that loves editing and loves this topic, I found myself, I enjoyed the editing process, but like it's a big learning curve, so it slowed me down. I could use some help to co-produce this. That would be awesome. But I have some interviews lined up. One of them, your question, where did I find? Well, one of them is Rhea I met on the Star Trek cruise, right? Trekkie, she's a woman pilot instructor. And then I also have Vikas Agarwal, who is the author of Waiting to Breathe, A Journey Toward Authentic Living. So it's a book that he wrote about that. And he's actually writing a sequel, and he's incorporating pieces from my own childhood into it, which I'm really excited to see that come alive. I actually worked with him at Amazon. We were both senior leaders there. I was there for 22 years. I worked with him, and he and I would have these great conversations about this topic. And I thought it would be great, especially because I think that also influenced me to want to do this, was his book. I've also have in the books I've already recorded Revital Ever. She's the founder of Finding Human, which is a consulting company. And what they do is they teach companies how to better connect and build collaboration within their businesses through showing them to connect better with themselves. So they show them that, like, if they have a better connection with themselves and can learn who they are and be authentic, they can connect better with others. And I'm like, wow, this is well aligned. And again, this is a woman that I've known for like 2 decades. And it's just kind of funny how, we all are kind of had been drawn to each other and ended up at the same spot, isn't it? And then the last but not least, I also have Mars Wright, who I've also recorded with, and he's an artist and a trans right activist. And I think with what's going on right now in the world, the work that he does is super important and valuable. And he's also another, a friend of mine. So if, anybody would like to come on and share their journey, or they know somebody who's had an amazing journey, please reach out to me. I would love to have you on the show.
Yeah. That's always so interesting. I find, I mean, I am very excited to be listening, because when you see what other people are going through, I mean, although it's not my experience, but when you get down to the values and the emotion, the feelings, those are what we get. That's what we have in common. Like, the experience only is there for individuals, but when you come to the same value system or the same feeling, like, yeah, I can understand, a loss if someone's passed. I have experienced that. So I can, we have that in common, even though the experiences are completely different. And I love finding that commonality.
Yeah. And then seeing how people are handling life's challenges in ways that you didn't consider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, we're all facing similar challenges, but maybe we didn't think about approaching it the same way. And so it's a great way to sort of discover that and just be reminded of some of the simpler things too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love this subject matter as something that I personally use as a growth tool as well, because my natural state is quite unemotional. And I always use the argument of, if a friend came to see me and said the house got burgled, I wouldn't immediately say, how do you feel? Do you feel safe in your own house? I would immediately say, have you got your contents insurance sorted?
Mm-hmm.
Very
Mm-hmm.
practical, not emotional. So I am constantly required to check a lot of these things. And usually in the workplace as well, for if I'm managing someone who doesn't appreciate the practical advice and is wanting that emotional support, then I need to check myself, because I'm not the first to give it. Mm-hmm. So I love anything like this. And we do a lot of like thought leadership pieces at where I work. I'm quite lucky that our CEO is big into this kind of material. So I'm very much looking forward to listening.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's another place where Star Trek influenced me, was that I was originally drawn to, specifically what I'm talking about is you mentioned that, emotions, right? That we tend to be very problem solving. Some people, not everybody, but some of us tend to go straight to the problem solving, the analytical. And, Star Trek was kind of a safe haven to me from my own emotions, because there were characters like Data, heck, even the crew, like, what was it? I remember there was an episode where Deanna Troi, her mother dies, and she's just like, she's not crying and like you would expect her to be like, right? Like, your mother just died, like you would be wailing from the rooftops, and she's just like, and it's like there's no feeling there, right? And that was comforting to me, because I was like, emotions are scary to me. So this show is great, because like in the future, people don't have these big emotions, and when they do have emotions, they're not that big, and they deal with it and they move on, and there's no drama, right? Which is why I love Discovery, because Discovery is more realistic. It's more human, right? Yes, people are crying a lot, but you know what? Crying is actually a good thing, and it's part of being human, and it's a wonderful tool that I think a lot of us are missing out on. So anyway, so Star Trek was that safe thing for me. But then there was that episode where that kid has a traumatic experience on the ship, and so he tries to emulate Data, right? He tries to become Data to do the emotional resilience thing, like you were talking about, Amy, right? To like, but that's like not what you need to be emotionally resilient. That's the opposite, That's like saying, I'm just going to go put my shields up and hide in a dark corner. Like, no. And so that was me. Like, I was doing that, just like I'm sure you've talked about, Kelvin. And I think it's also an element of, being a man, and that's kind of society, but not just men struggle with this. A lot of people struggle with this. But and so once I realized that the biggest challenge for me to connect with others was that I needed to connect with my own emotions. And that's this last year, just before, I think around the time that I started all of this, I took a 8-week mentorship course with Julian Blanc, who's this self-help guru. And I was expecting, a lot of it is teaching people how to be like better, content creators, influencers, like that's why people go on there, because they want to be able to put themselves out there. And he shows them like the reason you're not putting yourself out there is because you don't have this connection with yourself and your emotions. And the 8 weeks, I was shocked. I was like expecting the 8 weeks to be like, very like, I don't know, just something a little bit more analytical, but it was each week we just explored a different emotion. We started out, the first week was apathy. And then that's like at the lowest level of emotional energy, low level. And then sadness, and then anger, and then courage, and then pride, and then joy, and then love, right? So we explored each of those emotions, and and it wasn't just like you just study about it, but like doing actual exercises, like the courage one. I had to go out I went out, I was supposed to go out in public, so I went down to the pier and I held up a big sign that said free hugs. And like, I was so scared. I was like, I felt so foolish. Like, are people going to be like, who is this guy? What is he doing? And I was shocked by how much love I got from so many different people that I did not expect, and how quickly it happened. And yeah, there was people, I got rejection. It was a good way to practice rejection, right? I received rejection. But when I did, I received it. I realized I suddenly became empathetic about it. I was like, wow, maybe you're rejecting me because you're just as nervous about this as I am.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you hug me, now you're also part of this free hug sign thing. And that's scary for you. And I get that. Like, I was like, you know what? I get why you don't want to hug me, because it's scary to do this. But the people who did, I'm like, thank you. Like, this is you showing me that I can do this and I can be courageous. So I think that's a great call out, Kelvin. It's emotions, and they're what make us human. And they're also information. So if you're a very analytical person out there, I would say if you're ignoring your emotions, analytical logic requires information to make decisions. And so to say like, somebody's house burned down, I'm gonna go straight to like helping them figure out what to do next. You don't have all the information yet. Like, first you need to get the information. So be curious. How are you feeling, right? Because maybe the first thing that they need is not to get the insurance stuff figured out. Maybe the first thing they need is a hug. Maybe they need to talk it out. Because if they're in a bad emotional state, they're not going to be able to solve their own problems. And now they're going to be relying on you to solve all the problems, right? So, yeah.
Wow. Well, let's bring in Josh and Kristin. I am loving the idea of going out with a free hug sign. And I'm wondering, could I do that down on Las Vegas Boulevard? Kristin, would you be willing to hold up a free hug sign in a busy place in your town? You are on mute.
Yes, I would. That's actually, excuse me, is my cat's behind me.
Cat's like, no, ma'am, you are not hugging any strangers.
No, that is one angry 19-year-old cat back there. Yes, I would. My town actually has had people like that before, and during Pride Week here, those are everywhere downtown. And we also have a really big like free dad hugs and free mom hugs and stuff, which is a big deal for a lot of people who have been disowned by their family for their life choices. And so those tend to be the ones that mean the most. So I always want to go down and be like, free aunt hugs.
Yeah.
So yes, I would absolutely do that.
Josh?
I love the idea. I'm definitely like that positive, bubbly person. But I feel like because of that, often I'm usually trying to help people not react with all of the emotions right at first. Like, it's somebody the opposite. Like, I'm surrounded by people that have been going to therapy for a long time and all their emotions are out in front of them. I'm like, my God, can you please have some control? Don't just be like, you need to embody some of your volcanism here. but yeah, I tend to be a little bit more targeted with where I put my effort into those causes or issues or people or communities that I need to put time into, instead of just like blanket, like, let's give hugs to everybody. Everyone needs hugs, but I'm a little bit more like, I guess, focused when it comes to things like that. But I have other comments. I like this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
I really loved bringing up Luoxana Troy and her journey through Star Trek. I feel is so interesting. And Stevie and I were actually talking about this, how she always looks like this very bubbly together woman. And then we start to explore her in the dark page. And we really start to see how the idea of not dealing with emotions, not dealing with your past can really cause you harm in the present. And it's important, even if it's hard, it's something you need to work through. And then seeing how she just comes into her own in Deep Space Nine and her relationship with Odo and all of that. I just think that she is a really good example of how you can evolve with your emotions, especially for a race that's supposed to be seen as so emotionally intelligent, that she actually had a lot of work to do, and she did it, and it was not easy. And I think that it was portrayed so realistically. So I think she's such a good example to bring up.
And look at the flip reverse of that as well with Odo. So someone who is so unemotionally intelligent, or keeps everything in, to be with Luoxana is so exposing and causes so much embarrassment. But yet he works on that, and maybe that's what takes him to the level where he can get with Kira.
Yeah, and I just love the fact that she did so much for him in terms of helping him realize his worth, right? And Lex, like you were talking about, it's important to have people in our lives that help us discover our intrinsic worth as human beings, as a living creature. So I think that was an amazing friendship. And like you said, Kelvin, it brought him to a point where he could then find happiness, and he realized he did a lot of growth through that too. So yeah, it impacts people around you when you're in a good mental space versus a bad mental space. And so, what kind of impact do you want to have on the world and those around you?
Yeah, I love how you mentioned that Odo is transformed by his relationship with Luoxana, and I think that's a really good example to that episode where because she suppressed those experiences she had, that horrific experience she had. My mother actually had a very similar experience. My little brother, when I was 3, he drowned.
Wow.
And she carried that with her whole life. And it was in this last year, she went into a similar program I did, but a little different. And she finally processed all of that. And now she's just free and open, and like all this that was consuming her and running her, it is gone. And she can finally live her life fully. And I'm so happy for that. And so I feel like that's a true for so many of us. Like, what are those things that are inside of us that are weighing us down, that we haven't dealt with?
Wow.
Yeah, letting go of that which does not serve you is one of the hardest things to do, but one of the most important things to do.
Well, yeah, because you know what? The reason you have it around is because it serves you in some way, but not the way you need it to now. Maybe at one point it did, but
I recently got a new job like about 8 months ago or so. So now I lead a team of 11. And that's a lot of people, and every one of them has their own, journeys that they're going on. And so that's something that I think my company does a really good job of training new managers on having that emotional intelligence. I think a lot of that comes to me naturally, but the reminders, the extra training definitely is needed because, I'm definitely more like analytical. Like I assume that that's one of my biases that I have, is that I assume that others are in the same mental capacity that like sort of I am in any given moment. That's a pretty common bias that people have. But I kind of assume someone's already like well fed, has worked out, has slept well, and is ready to receive like guidance on something. It's like, no. How are you doing today? How are you feeling? Like, what's going on with you? And also, rather than immediately giving someone feedback on something they could have done better, inquire, like, how have you been lately? Well, is there anything else happening in your life that I should be aware of? And almost always it reveals, a lot of that. And I want to also give extra, I guess, to lifting up what you said, Lex, about like exercise. I think sometimes people think it's insensitive to recommend exercise when they're going through hardship, but it's not going to ever make you feel worse. And certainly for me, I think I'm drawn to like endurance exercises because it like when you're in a pool swimming 2,000, 4,000 yards, like you're staring at the bottom of the pool with just your mind for 40 minutes to an hour. And so it's a really nice way to just let that consciousness run, and you can think about it. Similarly, if you're biking 8 hours, you're thinking about like whatever has happened, and it helps me. I guess I reflect a lot on my day, my feelings, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's a really go ahead, Kristin.
I was just gonna say one thing that like Justin and I do, and I do with some of my friends, is we have a little code. We go ESP check. How is your ESP? How is your emotion, your spiritual life, and your physical being? How is your ESP? And then it just allows people to say good, not good, and then it kind of opens up to having some conversations. But because there's, for me, it's that trifecta. All things need to be in line to be thriving. Because Josh, as much as I would like to think that I'm always well fed and well rested and whatnot, no.
Not always.
No. I wish. That's what I aspire to.
Wow, I love that ESP, emotional, spiritual, and physical. I like that.
Anyone who wants to join in the ESP check, we can maybe do a little group chat or something for supporting each other.
I mean, it's ESP, right? So maybe you don't even need to chat. It's just actually happening. but I did want to call out, like, I think the reason, Josh and Kristin, why this works is because these are not separate things. Like we think that emotions are separate from our body. No, our emotions are in our body. Our emotions are our body. We think that our thoughts are separate from like the thoughts are in the brain. The brain is part of the body. And so when you're working out, you are actually training the mind and the emotional state, all the systems that are controlling all of this, you're training them, right? And so it's a big ask to say like, hey, go and do some endurance exercise or go lift some weights. Maybe just go for a walk, just get moving, if you can just, and again, you don't, like you're saying, you got to meet people where they're at. So you can't even suggest to them to go do these things, right? You've got to, help them figure out how to realize, oh, that's what's missing in my life, and then want it. Because if they don't want it, they're not going to get there. So I love that you called out, Josh, that you kind of have to like meet people where they're at. And that is really hard to do. And again, going back to the Star Trek analogy, that's what the Federation does. They don't wait for people to show up at Earth. They go out and meet people where they're at, right? So we can learn something from that.
Well, Lex, we are so glad that you are meeting us where we are at to see your first pilot episode at Transformational Journeys on YouTube. Thank you so much for this amazing exploration of self. So we are going to take a little break and then come back with Josh exploring the stars.
Thanks, Lex.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey and Mitch, self-proclaimed gamers who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for the Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the Trek Book Club on Twitter and Bluesky, and his companion Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey and MC. If you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch the Viewscreen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with new 8-week seasons in the spring and fall. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with an LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea Bev. And for our patron members, we have the Hive Mind with script readings and roundtable discussion, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, then Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. You can keep up with all of these shows by following the network at BQN Podcasts on Instagram and Bluesky. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome back to the Viewscreen, and it's time for our final guest of the day. So let's go ahead and bring Josh back in. Hello, Josh. How are you doing?
I've been good. The work is crazy. We're getting to the end of Q1, and sales is always insane that time of year. And me and Cam are in the process of closing on our new home, moving down the street. So that's very exciting. We'll be like beach people. So
oh no, your garden!
I know. I'm sad to lose the garden, but we'll make a new garden. Don't worry.
So you've got space. I mean,
oh yeah, that's a prerequisite.
Notice that was my first reason.
Is it
2 miles
down the
2 miles
street?
away? Yeah.
Wow. Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, it's busy time of year, but also very exciting. And my nephew just got here. So tomorrow I'm taking him. We're going to go up to Vermont and go skiing for the week. So looking forward to that too.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, it's so great to see you and Lex, actually, because it's this time of year that we'd be seeing you in person under normal circumstances. Exactly. So that is amazing. Now, we've done a huge amount of exploration of the self already this episode. So now I guess it's time to look outwards, or indeed look up. So, what are you discussing with us today, Josh?
Yeah, so today I thought I would, I get asked this a lot because I do a lot of astronomy stuff. And so this time of year, or basically it's about every couple of years when the planets align, people are like, oh my God, are you seeing the planet alignment? And I'm like, yes, it's been happening for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, it's not like the one day, the planets don't move that fast. So anyway, like I do a lot of these kind of things, like in popular sort of literature, like the mainstream kind of media, you see these hot, tagging headlines, right? And then as someone who like really digests this kind of news like every single day, like, there's more to the sky than just that kind of stuff. So I thought I would walk through the parade of planets, how one could observe it, both just with your eyes, and I have some examples of my own sort of imaging, and like some other ways that one can engage with space to sort of stay current with what's happening in the sky. And I do think it's relevant because people often ask me how I got involved in like looking up at the sky in the first place. And it was basically grad school. Like I was, walking home late at night, looking up, thinking about why the hell am I doing on this earth? Like I'm looking at tiny little microscopic things. I'm making compounds, which are like, this microscopic, you can't even see them, right? And then, looking up at the sky, the cosmos of the whole of the universe out there. And so I had the desire sort of start looking at it, and it does help with perspective. It certainly is meditative, and it kind of replaced that sort of more religious kind of outlook part of my brain with overlaid with like a more sort of materialistic cosmological perspective. And again, like just like how you recommend someone who's not feeling great to exercise, that it won't hurt you, but it might make you feel better. Same thing with the sky. If you spend some time outside looking up at the sky, I think a big part of the ills of our civilization right now is light pollution. We're not looking up at the sky. Just not that long ago, really, people could walk out their front door and look up and they would see their place in the cosmos, and we've lost that. So we're losing perspective. We're losing this common knowledge that people used to have, that our place in the universe is special and that it's fragile. So anyway, and I have to say here, final comment is like this image. I'll come back to it, but this is me in January. Did a weekend away with some friends at a cabin by a frozen lake, and Orion's my favorite constellation. So I'm seen here, yay, in front of Orion. And so do you want me to pause for any questions now, or just jump into the content? Jump in.
Yeah,
okay, great. Next
go.
slide. So this is a pin from my time when I visited Chile last July. You are welcome here. It's just it bears repeating. So I'll briefly go through like imaging, like what does that mean when I say like I took these images. I'll talk about my work at High Rock Tower, because that's how I engage mostly with the public once a month with space. The Parade of Planets, really cool thing that happened, the Mars occultation, if my video works, and then some other constellations to look at this time of year, and then just some takeaways on how you can learn about astronomy. And in part of that is following space missions that your taxpayer dollars are paying for, so you might as well get joy from them. Next slide. So imaging. So when I say I take pictures, this is what I mean. Like this is me with my home observatory. This is my home telescope. This is in visual observing mode, but I can basically replace where I'm looking at with my eyeball and pop in a camera, and then I take images. And on the right-hand side here, that's a 15-second snapshot of the Whirlpool galaxy, where it's one of these like grand design spiral galaxies where you can see the very clear spiral arms. And we're probably not in our lifetime is going to be able to hop into a antimatter powered spaceship to fly faster than the speed of light across the cosmos. But you can basically get the same feel by looking through a telescope. That's really what brings me, I kind of picture like I'm in a spaceship looking out into the universe, and we're in spaceship Earth. Really, that's what we're on, careening through the cosmos. So when I take images, this is what I'm doing in my backyard with my equipment set up there, so that I can process and then be able to pull out detail, because one doesn't just take a single snapshot, because the atmosphere is all bubbly above you. So you have to do lots and lots of images. And so I'll talk about more of that when I talk about planetary images. But for example, to get a nice image of the whirlpool, I might take 300 individual images and then ditch the ones that are blurry, and then I stack to end up getting like even just like a minute of exposure time. Similarly with the planets, I might do a minute-long recording, and then I'm doing a very small section of the sensor, and I'm doing like 150 frames per second, and then I'm recording a minute of that, and then I'm ditching 75% of them and doing what's lucky imaging and taking that small section that's left and stacking those. So all the images you see are basically from like a very kind of intensive process of data acquisition, but it's well worth it because it allows me to then share what I'm seeing with people I care about.
Is that really time consuming?
It can be, yeah, for sure. The planetary imaging, that's pretty quick because that's like minutes. I have my telescope set up in the observatory, so I can pop out within like a minute or two. I'm able to look at stuff. I record, a minute-long video, and then I have to process it over afterwards. But depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, in terms of like if I'm doing like a color image, like I am with the galaxy shown here, or if I'm doing a black and white image with different filters, that can take hours and hours and days, and I'm in an urban environment, so I'm usually doing the bare minimum to get a reasonably okay image. Some people spend months acquiring data before they compile an image, and yeah. So next slide. So yeah, High Rock Tower, this is more visual observing, but this is just 10 minutes down the road from me, or via walking. It's perched up high, and this is relevant, I think, from like a Star Trek ethos perspective. Like the family that owned this land, the Hutchinsons, they were friends with Frederick Douglass, who famously got kicked off. He had like a Rosa Parks moment on a passenger rail line in the town that I live in now. And so there's like sort of that lot of history of abolitionism here. And anyway, this tower was built in 1904, 1905, and it's one of the few, like it's a city-owned observatory, which is pretty unique in the country, probably indeed in the world. Often they're owned by private astronomy associations, or they're owned by universities and such. So anyway, we try to open it up as often as we can. We have a very similar telescope to the one I have at home on the central pier here. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to this link here. But it's a nice space to bring the public in, and we'll usually look at the planets first and foremost, because they're the most charismatic. But then, time permitting, we'll look at some of the deeper sky objects like the nebulas, like the galaxies, to also talk about those kinds of objects. But we do everything from just the general public to school groups, church groups, and everything in between.
I was going to ask about school kids. What a tremendous resource for the local schools in the area.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll do the whole 5th grade, and they'll come with their friends and family, and it's really, really great. A lot of good energy. And I would say, this may be unkind for me to say, but most kids that come, like, they're blowing snot bubbles, and they're like, they're not like the operating system's not on yet, as it were. But then you'll get that 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 who like, he's small boy, small girl. They know every minor planet. They know what the hell a minor planet is in the first place. They know asteroids. They know like all the moons. They know all the facts, everything you can imagine. And I'm sure as a teacher, Amy, you know that kind of like person.
Yep.
And it's just really exciting to see, and it really helps bring my faith back into humanity.
Yes, it does.
And you also have people that have lived in Lynn their whole lives, and they've never gone in the tower. So that always brings me joy when people go, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen it." And then you see that look on people's face when they see Saturn's rings for the first time, or they see the craters of the moon. That definitely brings me a lot of joy.
Wow. Yeah.
Next slide, please. The views from the top of the Tower of Boston also are absolutely stunning. Really beautiful sunrises and sunsets and all that in between. So Parade of Planets. So basically this happens anytime you have planets in a line. And Mars is basically about every 2 years is a good time for us to take a peek at it, just due to the orbital mechanics. And this is generated using software called Stellarium. It's free, and you can input your location, and you can see basically everything that's in the sky: satellites, deep sky objects, planets. And they have a free app on your phone as well. And what I've marked here is this red line. That's the ecliptic. So that is the plane of our solar system. So whenever you look up, and the reason why the planets are in a line, it's not like, ooh, they just happen to be there. No, they're there because we all form from the same accreting protoplanetary disk. And so we all, the angular momentum is conserved. And so we are still orbiting in those same areas where we accreted, billions of years ago. And so that's why you see the planets along there. So on January 27th, for example, you could see Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars. Uranus is labeled here, but Uranus isn't really naked eye. And when you look at it with a telescope, even a bigger one on the ground is still quite small. So I tend to avoid that unless every now and then I might take pictures of the moons or something. But yeah, so this is really great. And what's also fun about looking at the planets is, of course, it's striking to see such bright things in a line. Your brain, human brains are really good at seeing patterns and recognizing those things. And, I often get people like, oh, I was driving home one night 2 years ago and I saw this really bright thing. Like, what was it? And similarly, you see in the news all this drone stuff, and that happened in Jersey. Some of it was drones, but a lot of it was like planes. Some of it was stars. Some of it was planets. It's because people don't know anything about the sky anymore. So like, it's good. We should learn more about the sky so that we can not get so scared about when we see bright things up there. And also what's fun about this is you get to see them move. Like the planets get their name from the fact that they navigate across the sky. You hear about Mercury in retrograde, so it means that it's actually going in reverse. So you can see relative to the other stars that don't move, that the planets are tracing a course across the sky. So that's also fun. And so this is what it looked like on January 27th. And then if you go to the next slide, Saturn has gone away, but now we have Mercury. And so now you can see Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars. And the moon, because it orbits Earth, and therefore Earth is also in the ecliptic of the solar system, the moon will go across that ecliptic as well, as does the sun for that matter. And so often you get these, the moon will be like a crescent next to a really bright, like Jupiter, or next to a bright Venus. And that's also usually quite stunning. In fact, you often see that on like various country flags, where they'll have like a shape of a crescent with a bright dot. That's probably like, the crescent moon with like the sun or Jupiter. And so, sorry, I said the sun with Venus. And so again, this is another example that, just because we lost Saturn, now we have Mercury. And this, by the way, that first image was January 27th, and now we're in March. So like it's not like it happens the one time. This has been happening for weeks and weeks and weeks. And in fact, it's still happening. You can totally still go check out some of these. It's really quite stunning. If you're around, say I'm in Boston, so Jupiter's more or less overhead right now, and Mars isn't too far over. So I also wanted to share this image because you can see the ground is curved. It's very like fish eye-y. So they're really not like next to each other. Like they're actually kind of spread apart. But if you find Venus near sunset, because Venus is closer to the sun, near the sun, so it's always going to be near the sun in the sky. So you're always going to see it at sunset or sunrise. And so you can follow that. You'll then follow it up to the moon, and you'll see Jupiter along the way. Mars is unmistakable due to its red color, orangish color. So yeah, really wanted to call that out. And it's convenient for me, as someone who likes to take images, that they're all kind of there, so then I can take a look at some of them. So if you go to the next slide, these are some of my images that I took. And at full transparency, I think my telescope needs collimation, and that I need to go get it serviced. So that explains why some of them aren't as crisp as they could be. But I still think these are pretty damn good, since I'm an amateur. So Jupiter from November, so already like end of last year, we had Jupiter and Saturn present. And so I imaged those back then. And basically, remember, I'm taking like a minute-long video. I'm taking the best like 25% of frames from that video, stacking them, and then I'm applying something called wavelets to bring out detail. So you can see the cloud bands, you can see the red spot in Jupiter. And then Jupiter's quite big in the telescope. And then you have Mars. Oops, it looks like the date got messed up on Mars, the top one, but that's from January 23rd of this year, 25th, 2025. And then later or earlier in the month, January 14th. Sometimes I put on a lens that lets me zoom in a little bit more. So that's why the images are a little bit different in size. But you can see albedo features, which is like, you can see that there are light patches and dark patches of Mars. And Mars is, incredibly tiny, and it's so far away. So the fact that I can see any kind of detail on it makes me excited. Something that's super exciting about Saturn right now is that it goes, as we orbit around the solar system, the plane of the rings changes relative to our position on Earth. So back in 2018, when I imaged Saturn, it was tilted more towards us so we could see all the gaps and stuff. But right now, it's basically almost edge on. So the rings are on the cusp of actually disappearing from our perspective. So it looks like a straight line through the planet. And then, of course, it'll tilt back later. But if you watch the same things over time, you get to see them happening. And speaking of that with Mars, around opposition, usually Mars, because there's more solar energy, it can kick up a lot of the dust, and you'll get planet-wide dust storms that will occlude any kind of surface detail. And so right now, the fact that I was able to see some detail 2 years ago, I couldn't. So I was quite pleased with that. And then finally, Venus is one of my favorites because I took this image. I'm sorry, the image credit somehow got messed up here, but this is an Amateur Astronomer Association image. But Venus goes through phases just like the moon does. So when it's on the very far side of the sun, that's when it's full and it's itty bitty in the sky. And then when it's closer to the Earth, on our side of the sun, then that's when you'll see it have these kind of half moon appearances, being half illuminated. And as it gets closer to its inferior conjunction, then you'll see it take on this really stunning crescent. So I imaged Venus just a few days ago, and it's on that cusp of being that really thin crescent. And even just a couple months ago, it was about half illuminated. So that's been really fun to see, because naked eye, it's just this bright thing, but then you zoom in and you can see this crescent, and that always is quite stunning for people. They'll, they drive to the observatory, presumably knowing that if the moon's up or not. I don't know. They look through the telescope and they say, "Oh my God, the moon!" I'm like, "Do you see the moon in the sky? Like, the moon's not in the sky. Like, we're seeing Venus." So that's also a really a joy. Next slide. Sorry, I'm trying to be quick in the interest of time.
No, you take your time, Josh.
And then I'm not sure if we can play this movie. Try it.
Yeah, that's not going to happen here. Sorry, I didn't know it was a movie. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. But anyway, this is basically in real time. You can see Mars moving behind the moon. And it's really quite stunning. So if anyone needs to see this movie, just, I guess, find me on Facebook. It's on there. And occultations are cool because it's really stunning when you see one planet move behind the moon, and it's happening in real time, and you can see it with your eyes, and you can see orbital mechanics happening. You think about the sky as being this thing that is fixed, but it's moving really quite quickly. And occultations are also important because our best huge telescope images of this binary asteroid is only blurry dots. But by timing if we know that it's going to move in front of a star, in this case LQ Aquarii, you can have people placed all over the planet and look at and time the occultation together. And so if you have really precise measurements of when the star blinks out and comes back, then you can orient all those trajectories across an image, and you can basically get a shadow of the object that occulted the star. So this is how we can get the shapes of asteroids that otherwise they're so small, they don't reflect a lot of light. It's hard to get a lot of detail from them. And so this is literally a binary asteroid occulting a star. By timing observations across the planet, we can get a shadow of it. Which I think is stunning. Like, that's just fun and cool. And you can learn more about it at this link here. So next slide. And so I talked about, of course, I looked at the planets with my eyes as well as with the telescope. But one of my favorite constellations is Orion. So you think about Tendi in Lower Deck. She's the mistress of the winter constellations, and Orion is a winter constellation for us, which I don't know if it is on Orion, but depending on what their orbits are like. So what I love about Orion is, of course, it's immediately recognizable. There are some interesting stars in there. And you have the 3 stars in a line for Orion's belt, so it's easy to recognize in the Northern Hemisphere. Southern Hemisphere also has Orion. It's just upside down, so that's an interesting tidbit. And when you look at Orion's belt, and then you go just a little bit below that middle star, you see that there's those 3 dots in a line. Those are not all stars. The middle one is actually a naked eye visible nebula that's like 1,500 light years away from Earth, where new stars are being formed. So that is a nebula that you're seeing with your naked eye when you see that bit of Orion.
Wow,
and
I had no idea.
This is an image I took of that nebula on the right-hand side. And so in the very center of that, that's where you have stars that they're young and hot and generally blue. They form a structure called the trapezium because it's shaped like a trapezoid. And they are really their light is so bright, and hot. It's illuminating the hydrogen that's in that cloud, and that hydrogen gets excited to higher energy levels and emits light in return. So it's basically atomic emission. And so that's why the nebula glows. And that's why it appears red in this image here. So I love the Orion Nebula. It's really fun. It's really cool. It's a really quite big nebula, and it's the nearest star forming region to Earth. So it's a nice way to see, like, okay, this is how planets are formed. This is how solar systems are formed. This is how life begins. And I think from the perspective of Star Trek and finding new worlds, this is absolutely relevant to that kind of perspective. Next slide. So how can you also learn about the sky? And you think, oh God, I don't have a degree in astronomy. No, do I. My background's in chemistry. I have never taken an astronomy class. I've only been self-taught. So if I can do it, you can too. And so some ways that I like to learn, first of all, is astronomy picture of the day, apod.nasa.gov. Make that be your default page on your web browser. Take a look at it every single day. There's all kinds of stuff in there. You can learn about various space things. And then Sky and Telescope, Sky at a Glance. So they have these really nice graphics, like as shown here at the right, where they'll show you like, oh, look here, there's going to be this interesting shape of stars. And that shape of stars might be called like the winter hexagon, or it's the summer triangle. And the triangle is made up of these stars, and it gives you the name of the stars, and it tells you where to look, what time to look. So it helps you start to learn the sky. And it also shows you, for example, here, like, oh, that's where Mars is near those other two stars. That's Pollux and Castor. And Mars is going to be moving this way past them. Oh, and by the way, the moon's going to be visiting. And so on the 7th, the moon's going to be over here. On the 8th, it'll be here. And it's going to be a little bit more full on the 9th. So it gives you that ability. And if you do, I guarantee, if you start doing this every week for a couple months, you're going to know the night sky just as good as anybody. And some other apps that can help enable you when you go outside and you're looking. You can look at Stellarium. This one I showed you screenshots from before. The NASA app, Skyview, Starwalk, and you can make a plan. You know, something I did, if you have like a small telescope or binoculars, you want to look at things more closely, pick a constellation and look up on Wikipedia that constellation, and you'll see a star map, and you'll know all the objects that are in that constellation. So you can find, you know, oh, can I see the Sombrero Galaxy in Corvus this summer? Or, oh, can I go and see the globular cluster that's located in Hercules? You know, you make a plan and go see if you can see it. If you want to learn more, like documentary style, YouTube, Astrum, really, really nice. If you want to get more into astrophysics and looking at like the kind of literature, like the latest papers that are coming out, Dr. Becky's incredible. And look up, you know, like literally like look up at the sky and be curious about what you're seeing. There's plenty of stuff to see with just your eyeballs. Or if you want to just get a pair of binoculars, you don't need to have an expensive piece of equipment to engage with the night sky. And that's a cute children's book if you have any like nieces, nephews, or children in your life that you want to inspire about space. So next slide, please. Another way to stay engaged with science, to know what's happening, is to follow space missions. So some exciting missions that I'm certainly following is Juno's already around Jupiter right now. So it's mapping its gravity, magnetic fields, but also it has these special imagers that allow it to peer through the upper cloud layer. So you get these really stunning, high resolution images of the various structures in the Jupiter clouds. Two missions that have launched but will not be to Jupiter for another about 5 years or 6 years are JUICE and Europa Clipper. So JUICE is the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer. So as its name suggests, it will explore the icy moons of Jupiter. 3 of the Galilean moons, which are Europa, Io, Ganymede, and Callisto. They're all quite icy bodies, and some of them, for example, are a Ganymede, the biggest moon in our solar system. Europa has had, best as we can tell, a subsurface salty ocean for a very long time, which would give it a very good chance, potentially, if there's enough energy there, to harbor life. We don't know. So JUICE will be mapping and looking at these potentially habitable conditions of these worlds. And then Europa Clipper actually will have the appropriate instrumentation to sample the plumes that are emitted from these stripes that you see on Europa. And so sampling that material will be able to determine if there's organics present. If there's organics present in salty water, there's a good chance that that is due to potentially habitable conditions or potentially life. So very, very exciting stuff. And next slide. You must be living under a rock if you've not heard about the James Webb Space Telescope. This is out in our Lagrangian point 2, L2, which is a stable sort of orbit out by Earth. And you can certainly go on. Like, the thing about taxpayer funded missions is they have to upload their data. So like, you can go to any of these missions web pages, and as they're taking images, you see them. And so some recent examples, these are literally in the past several weeks. One of my favorite types of objects to look at are protoplanetary objects. So these are called Herbig-Haro objects, when like the protoplanetary object is like giving off light and it's reflecting some of the dust clouds and such. So this is Herbig-Haro object 30. This is a protoplanetary disk. So this is a star that is formed, and you have a accretion disk around it. And often when that's happening, material gets accelerated along the magnetic fields of the poles of the star. So you see that jet coming out. And Webb was able to build out our understanding of this by imaging it in the mid-infrared and the near-infrared. And ALMA array, which I shared with you, your viewers, months and months ago when I went to Chile, acquired the image of that disk that's right there, that thin slice right in the center. Another protoplanetary system, Lens 483. This is a double protostar system. So you have these jets that are being shot off in all different directions, and you can just see that, this is collapsing down and turning into a solar system. And it's, again, we're not able to travel through space, but almost certainly if we were on USS Voyager and Janeway detected one of these bitches out the view screen, she would say, I'm so sorry, we're going to add another couple weeks to our journey home so that we can go look at these objects. So you too should take advantage and look at the data and read up about them, because they're beautiful images, but it's also fascinating. And I think that's all I have, actually. A little bit of a whirlwind. I think one more slide might be a thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. Josh, I love this. I was one of those people who has been affected by the media, thinking that the planetary alignment was one night only. Get yourself out there and look. So I think it was last Friday, wasn't it, when it was all over the news. James and I were feeling a little bad that we weren't on the cruise, so we decided to sit there in our Starfleet uniforms, pretending we were. And then we went, let's look outside and let's go and see what planets we can spot in the back garden.
Oh.
And we were like mapping, and they said, let's head out to the front by the canal and see. Let's have a look over in the east. So we were running out in our Star Trek uniforms, pointing up at the sky, and all the people just walking past, like walking their dogs in the evening, were looking very strangely at us.
Fantastic.
You were the Zephram Cochrane statue who was standing right there, pointing up at the stars, just like this.
I bet people thought the world was going to end or something. We were that excited.
I love it.
Well, let's bring in Lex and Kristin. Let's see what they've made of that. I feel very enriched by all of this today. I'm not going to lie. It's great. Lex, anything take your fancy from Josh's presentation?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's when I was a kid, I grew up in Arizona. I got to go to I forget what the observatory is down in southern Arizona. It's the largest solar telescope
in Tucson for Arizona University.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. And I don't think I appreciated it as much as a child. I don't think that what you just presented to me right now, or to us right now, okay, yep, that's it. Yeah. Just really reignited my interests in all of this. And of course, me being the kind of like inner journey kind of person, straight went to thinking about how precious this moment we have right now is. Like when you pointed out the nebula that's forming new stars, I was just thinking, well, the sun was formed like over 4 billion years ago. Like 4 billion years from now, there could be another Earth-like planet coming out of that, and like, it's just space and time are so vast. And I think when you take time to slow down and look at the rest of space, because we're in space right now, right? But like the rest of space that we're in, it really puts things into perspective. And I think it can really help, like that, slowing it down and thinking like, okay, I've got all these things going on, all these worries. And it's like, yeah, but like, we're part of something so much bigger. And we're so we're so blessed to be part of this in this one brief little moment in time, and in this big inhospitable universe, with nebulas exploding and everything, that we managed to just be okay in our little bubble. So anyways, that's my perspective on it. Thank you for sharing that. That was really cool.
Thank you. And Kristin, do you get to look up at the skies much?
Oh, all the time. But I also follow it from a different perspective, where I love to take the science of it, but also put it with like sort of the metaphysical.
The astrology.
I definitely, I don't know. People can say it's boo hockey all they want, but I do believe that we are affected by the stars in the universe. It's physical. We can see it. It's tangible. Why can it not affect us? Right? Why can that not be part of who we are? But I think, Josh, what I took most from your discussion was talking about how we used to be able to just go and just look up into the sky and see stars. And now there's pollution, there's light pollution, there's all of this going on. And now we're sending stuff into space. And I think I get it. We're exploring, we're seeking out new life and new civilizations. That's great. But we are also stewards of this earth, of the universe, and of the animals that we find and the life forms that we find. And we need to make sure that we are approaching this with care. We are visitors here. We are, overseeing, and it is our responsibility to care for the natural world, whether that be on this planet or looking at other planets. So I think it's really important that as this technology increases and as we continue to branch out, that we're not ruining more planets. And again, we've seen this in Trek. We've seen this where, is it the final mission where they have to go and tow the garbage barge because it's destroying this planet and it's someone's trash in space?
Garbage.
And then there's the whole storyline with B'Elanna and that, what were they on Voyager?
The garbage people.
Yeah. And all of that radiation and stuff.
Theta radiation.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we make sure that we've seen what we've done to Earth. It's not great. And so don't F it up, people. So that's where I very much went, is I love that we're reaching out and that we're exploring, that we're really following, that exploration, but we need to do it mindfully and respectfully.
Indeed.
Yeah.
On that topic, Josh, have you seen, I've heard, and I don't feel like I've heard enough about this because it sounds like a house on fire to me, that the Starlink satellites are making it harder and harder for astronomers to observe the rest of space from Earth. Is that true?
That is true. So certainly for an amateur. So and even the observatories that I visited in Chile, like they have to account for the orbits of these satellites in order to avoid interference. And of course, Starlink does good things in terms of bringing internet to rural areas. But I definitely have plenty of images where I'm like taking an exposure and like boom, exposure's ruined. But like, in the grand scheme of things, it's like it's an image, but like it's in my lifetime, like we've gone from like very little space trash to a ton of space trash. And so, and it may be unkind to call Starlink trash, but fuck Musk. And so like, I feel like it's easy to imagine that the sky could be so filled with satellites that it becomes very difficult to see the cosmos. I mean, literally, I challenge you. I'm not sure if you do this, but like go outside and look up and actually look for like, say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you guaranteed will see Starlink satellites. You will see like crisscrossing across the sky. Like it used to be one of those things like, ooh, I saw a satellite. That's exciting. Yeah. And now it's like, they're freaking everywhere. So yeah, it's problematic. And if you think about wanting to get up into space, like, you definitely don't want to crowd low Earth orbit. Like already, like the International Space Station has to constantly be moving out of the way of debris. You think about you have communication satellites up there that are aging, that they become at risk of hitting other satellites that we don't want to be hurting. And then anyway, yeah, it's definitely problematic. Like you want to be thoughtful about the orbits that you are putting stuff into.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, while we've got everyone here on screen, why don't we do a little quick roundup of where people can find you online to continue the discussion with you directly. So as we bid goodbye and thank you all so much for being on with us today. Josh, where can the viewers and listeners find you?
Yep, you can find me on Facebook, Joshua Judkins. You can find me on LinkedIn, Joshua Judkins. You can find me on Instagram, Joshua Judkins. And you can find me on YouTube, Joshua. Oh, actually, I'm Joshua ONU, which is not Joshua on you, but I went to Ohio Northern University, so it's Joshua ONU.
Sure.
That's a different website.
That's the OnlyFans version, right?
I'm not cheap.
Brilliant. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you so much. And Lex, where can people find you and your amazing podcast and show?
Yeah, so if you want to check out my podcast, please go to @Transformational Journeys and subscribe and check out the new pilot. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Please comment on it. The algorithm loves comments, so please comment. And then if you can, also, if you want to connect with me personally on Instagram @the_Lex Rosa. And then professionally, if you're looking for an AI ML product leader, I'm in the market. I'm available. You can find me on LinkedIn, Alex Rosales. That is my actual name. Lex Rosa is a cute little shortening of Alex Rosales. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And Kristin, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram @kstrats. I'm on Facebook, Kristin Stratulat, but I'm barely on Facebook. But my big one is Reddit @user_Garrick's Fan Club. And that is where I'm usually online, engaging in great Trek-based conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And go on, Stevie, where can people find you as well?
Oh, they can find me on Insta.
From all over America.
Yes, all the way with Stevie J on Insta. I'm still going to be posting a lot more about the cruise, including the saucy discussion about the male genitalia by Robin Curtis.
He got the whole thing on video.
Oh,
Yes.
bro.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
just a
what I was
snippet of it,
talking
but
about.
it's a snippet of just how, oh my goodness, she was just the best.
Open.
Bring
Well,
her
I can't
back.
wait.
Bring her to every convention. She is just awesome. You'll love her.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Amy, what about yourself?
Well, you can find me here on the network co-hosting Union Federation. And right now we are doing the Orville character review, having a great time. Dr. Finn, who is our Star Trek alum, Penny Johnson.
Cassidy Yates, yeah.
Yep. So we'll be talking about her. So you can find us there, Union Federation. I am on Bluesky @Counselor Amy on our Discord server. That's my favorite place. And our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. And Kelvin, where can people find you?
I am on most of the socials @Kelvin's Timeline, but my favorite place is the BQN Collective Facebook group, where we all interact, posting funny memes, lots of comments, and lots of chats, and primary way to kind of draw people's attention to our network shows as well. So head over to there.
Yes. Well, what are we going to bring on for next week?
Next week, well, it is our that visual's gone a bit funny. That's my fault. It's a family show next week. So we are celebrating some shows across the BQN network, starting with Peter and Trek Book Club. So Peter's going to come on, tell us a little bit about some books that he's been reviewing over there at the moment. So
Which he has been in the chat. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. And it's a little All Good Things reunion as Christos returns to the view screen to join you, me, and Kristin. And we're going to do a show within a show. So we're going to do a What's the Tea Bev special, where Christos is going to share his usual content and interview with a Trekking to Know You, someone very close to us. So that'll be great fun.
Yes. And again, Peter's Always great to be there and looking forward to next week. Yes, we are looking forward to have you. If just a shout out, this past weekend online, he's been doing his book review of, I think it was the Patrick Stewart, or sorry, just kidding, the Captain Picard autobiography.
Ooh,
so out there online, yeah, really good. All right. Well, we would like to thank our guests and the amazing chat there. Thank you so much for watching us. Thank you, as always, to Kristin for the news and what's trending. Really, really amazing. And for our producer behind the scenes, David, making that magic happen, getting all those slides going. And to our marketing director, Kit Adzima, making our show be more visual. And I just wanted to say, I was so excited. We did get a retweet on Twitter. So thank you for retweeting. Oh, no, not Twitter. Bluesky. What are we calling that? I am not on Twitter. So yes, thank you for sharing our socials out there on the, out there.
Brilliant. Thank you. We would love to hear what you thought of today's show, and we do hope that you'll continue the discussion on our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, and on our Discord server. So head over there and you'll find the invite code for Discord in the show notes.
And a huge thank you to our Patreon members making this all possible. You won't hear commercials, and that's part of the reasons because we do have amazing supporters. So please, if you would like to, patreon.com/BQN.
And if becoming a patron isn't your thing, please remember that you can continue to support the show and the other shows on the network by just tweeting, posting, talking about it with your friends, hitting like and subscribe, and just getting our name out there. Thank you very much.
And it is time for our giveaway. If you would like our season 3 comm badge, please type in Exploration Week into the chat, and we will get you your own season 3 Viewscreen Pride badge.
Exclusive to Viewscreen viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Thank you once more to all of our guests today. Thank you to everyone who's joined us live in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's listened again on Catch Up. And that's all for today. We will be back here at the same time next week, which will be 4 o'clock for those of us in the UK for a couple of weeks until we put our clocks back.
So we're a little closer in time now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Have a good day.
That's all for now. End transmission.